First, let me make it clear that the idea to offset disaster aid, we have a lot of emergencies that we offset. Disaster aid we never have, because it's something that's needed immediately. And what has troubled me so much about this offsetting it is while we're in the process of rebuilding Afghanistan, and they just announced the other day, which sort of really stirs my blood, is in Iraq they're going to build a 280-mile high-speed rail project from Basra to Baghdad. Now, they just took some money away from us, but the same taxpayer money that rebuilds Afghanistan with no offset will not be used, according to the majority in the House, and they have an effective majority in the Senate with 60 votes, for the people who pay that money. It is an outrage any way you look at it. And we're absolutely holding firm on the fact that it's a bad precedent. We have never said to our neighbors and who are in serious trouble from disasters, wait till we get this money put together. We don't do that in the United States.
So this whole notion of cutting spending in one place to
right, cutting a jobs program, cutting our future. The money that they're taking out is from automobile improvements in the future for better mileage and less pollution, faster automobiles. We're so far behind. In Europe right now, they're still getting 50 miles a gallon from many in their cars, and we've just fallen so far behind. But we cannot do anything to kill more jobs. It makes no sense at all. Well, it's not a good way to run a government. It's certainly not the most important government on the planet. It sets a very bad example, but that's what the whole year has been. And I hope that Americans are really disgusted, but I also hope that they're selective enough to know where that's coming from, who's doing the holdup. On Friday, they voted to basically take all protections of the Environmental Protection Agency away and to subject it all to a cost-benefit analysis. In other words, to see if it's worth it for you to be able to drink clean water and clean air, or is it just simply too costly for us to worry about that? As asthma rates climb among children in this country, as cancer rates climb, it's really a terrible thing that's happening, trying to go back in the last century.
Should we be getting used to these fights? Is this something that you see coming up every couple of months?
Well, we know how to change it, and I hope that's what we can do in 2012.
How wide is the valley? Can we expect a government shutdown on Friday?
No, I don't think so. I think it's going to be the same brinkmanship we had over debt limit. And actually, the House Speaker Boehner has already said he's not coming back till the 4th of October, no matter what. So, only thing I know of, if the Senate passes something tonight, they could go over and by unanimous consent can be passed by the House and sent on to the President, which would avoid the shutdown.
Aside from the stress that it's putting on U.S. residents, this isn't looking really good in the eyes of the rest of the world.
Of course it isn't. No, they don't understand us at all. They can't understand why in the world, with all the climate change that's obviously taking place in America, people don't believe in it. I mean, I just reading this morning, a 30% loss in pumpkin crop this year. Pumpkin's the easiest thing in the world to grow, but the climate was so bad this summer, it was so dry that we lost all that. But we've got the signs and the portents. Every year, the disasters pile up far more serious. I don't think Binghamton, New York, ever thought it would be hit by a tropical storm. Okay. Well, we got to talk about Maria here.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm so delighted to let the Congresswoman field these questions because, you know,
Sure.
The issue of bullying has been obviously
absolutely.
There's been a push for statewide legislation. Do you think there's a need for federal legislation?
Secretary Sebelius is working very hard on this issue, and there will probably be some regulations that will not necessarily come out of HHS, but certainly in conjunction with the Education Department. It's an outrage. It's so much easier now with the internet that you can insult and say awful things about people anonymously. Children have been grievously hurt, and what happened here was a major tragedy. And I think all of us are diminished by the fact that some young people will drive another young person to that length, and it's pretty terrible. But I remember meeting with schools after Columbine and saying that they wanted to make sure that every child felt welcome and that there was no bullying. We seem not to have come terribly far with that. But we've got to really get together with parents, with educators, and with the children themselves and explain to them that that is not the way we behave.
Is there anything legislation could do?
Well, I'm not unhappy now leaving that with the state of New York and with Secretary Sebelius and see what she comes up with. And if what she recommends requires legislation, certainly we'll do it.
What are your thoughts on this?
I don't care. She's a citizen. She votes. And I would imagine pays a heck of a lot of taxes. I really can't judge that, to be honest with you. But I just think I really am most appreciative when people participate in the process. We've had far too many drop out. The last primary that we just had, the turnout was really atrocious for the best democracy on earth. And I hope that doesn't happen in November. For goodness sakes, I want to urge everybody to get out and vote. You've got some great candidates running here, and you've really got some work to get done. And look at that magnificent City Hall, which is probably better than any other building in New York. A lot of good work has to go on in there, right, Maria?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is it tough to come to these types of events with what's going on in Washington, because you're opening yourself up to criticism, saying, shouldn't she be in Washington rather than campaigning locally?
I have 6 events here, meeting with groups that have problems that we're going to deal with the federal government. But no, I think it's terribly important that I take out time to participate myself. Believe me, I would never get elected. We are just sent by our neighbors. We're not anything special. And when I can come here and stand with Maria's neighbors, and we all join together as neighbors, and certainly this women power is pretty one. And hey, look at guys. Hey, we're there. All right. But no, I don't feel that at all. I put in my time. We work very, very hard. I've got 3 district offices, as you know, and probably one of the busiest offices in Washington.
All the important qualifications to run for office. Where does being a woman rank? I mean, when I'm walking into, and I have a wife, I have a mother. I mean, I know how important the role of women is in society. But when I'm walking into the voting,
well, can I give you just an example? I went to a memorial service Saturday for an extraordinary woman who worked very hard to make sure that women could be in the room when some decisions were made. If I tell you that up to 1990, when I was elected in 87, 1990, all the research at the National Institutes of Health was done on white men. All of it. Hi. Good, you? I hope so. Breast cancer research was done on white men. There was no research, obviously, then done on cervical or ovarian cancer, and those were diagnoses for death. And in 1991, I happened to be in the catbird seat on the Rules Committee and the Budget Committee, and we put the first money in to study those things that had been grievously neglected. They didn't want to work with us because we had hormones. And I was pretty sure they could get around it. And they have, and now we've got about 50 treatments for osteoporosis, which was mainly a woman's disease, where we had none before. And we put in prostate cancer. I want you to know that. We were equal opportunity. The men we cared for and loved, we wanted to take care of them as well. Sickle cell anemia, lupus, things that had just been neglected for years and years and years. And we're the better for it. And women's health has taken its rightful place in America. We are, after all, as Maria said, half the population and taxpayers. And we have just been left out. So that's why it's important to have a woman in the room. I think, and it's as biased as it can get, women approach things differently. We are results-oriented, and we go straight to that issue. We're not diverted oftentimes by games or political shenanigans. We stick with it, and I've certainly, we've done that. We've done an enormous amount in our office with a high-speed rail, saving antibiotics for human beings, stopping genetic discrimination so that great science can go on. I have a trade bill now that is so wonderful that we're going to have reciprocity, and if we do trade agreements with these 3 companies, they're going to open up their countries to us if we can get this bill passed. And we have protection in there that the corporation that's aggrieved and or a congressperson, without having to mess around with a trade representative that I've never been really happy with, can stop that bill and make sure that they straighten it out. It's the first time we're going to be able to make it in America and sell it somewhere else. It's been a long time since we were able to do that. So those are not the kinds of things you can get done if you are diverted by a lot of shenanigans. And I just don't let myself do that. Okay? All right. Yeah.
Such disagreement on Capitol Hill, this had been happening 10 years ago.
What disagreement?
Over FEMA, just over the summer, having so much trouble just getting
Well, if you elect a lot of people who hate government, they're going to come and try to kill it. I mean, there was talk about going back to the budget of the Eisenhower era. Contemplate that for a minute if you had college loans and a few other things going on. So it's just this, the EPA regulations are awful. You know, I was born in eastern Kentucky. It took about 30 years for them to stop mountaintop mining and throwing it down into the creeks and spoiling the water supply. They have already voted this year to remove that regulation. And as I said, if the air that you breathe is too expensive to the people who cause the pollution, they're not going to do anything about it. But I don't believe the Senate will pass that, and certainly the president would veto it. So don't think that's going to become law. But that's what we talk about in the House.